want to talk a little bit about my daughter, Julianne. I have two daughters, two wonderful daughters, Liana and Julianne. When Julianne was 3 years old or 2 years old, she climbed up on the arm of my couch, my old Ernest Hemingway couch, and dived off onto her head. And that hurt a little bit. She was okay, don't worry, she's okay. But I sat her down and I comforted her for a little while until she was calmed down, and then I went back to whatever I was doing. And to my shock, when my back was turned, she got back up on the arm of my couch, dived off it again, back onto her head, and again it hurt. And I realized that what she was doing was not just something ridiculous, but she was trying to get it right. She thought that if she practiced, if she tried again, she would get this right. And she didn't realize that this was something you should not try again. And I thought about this, and I think about this every single time I see a new American president with a new Secretary of State, a new nicely minted Secretary of State with all kinds of ideas, and sometimes a new Israeli Prime Minister, and every once in a while, a new Palestinian leader. They change less often. They have fewer elections. All sit down and try to negotiate the two-state solution. They get behind closed doors, in secret. They talk about whatever it is they talk about. It falls apart. The Palestinians will say, nobody offered any plans. And the Israelis will say, oh, no, we offered very valuable, very generous plans. And the Americans will generally support the Israeli position. And then there's usually some kind of a war, a Gaza war, another intifada. And all the political commentators will say, well, it was worth trying. But it's not worth trying. The reason it fails over and over and over again is that negotiating the two-state solution in this way is just a dumb idea. If it hasn't worked yet, trying it again and again and again is not going to allow us to get it right. A new approach is necessary. Now, I come to you, I speak before you as a Jewish person, as a religious Jewish person, as perhaps a religious Zionist. There are a lot of connotations to that term, but I am a Zionist not only to protect Jews from a secular perspective, but also from a religious perspective. So I believe in Israel. I'm not here to present a plan that's going to destroy Israel. A lot of people, maybe on this very stage, have stood in front of crowds and said, here's the solution to the problem of Israel and Palestine, and then present something which would result in the death of the state of Israel. I am not going to do that today. And I am not naive about the neighborhood that Israel lives in. But something does need to change, because Israel is facing now a very dire situation. It's strong economically, very strong economically, and people will immigrate there just for the economic situation. It's strong militarily. It can fight any number of other Gaza wars. It can destroy Gaza 100 times over without skipping a beat. But the leader of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, is about to go through a diplomatic initiative against Israel that presents some real dangers. His first step is to demand that Israel put a plan on the table, a peace plan with orders, maps, everything resolved. The question of Jerusalem, the question of the right of return. And if Israel does not do that, by the end of the year, Palestine will go to the UN and have the armistice line, the green line, the absolutely unworkable green line between Palestine and Israel, declared the border. This would be terrible, an absolutely terrible result for Israel, as we'll talk about a little bit more. However, if Israel were to present a plan, not behind closed doors among a bunch of old men, but present a plan to the public, to the Palestinian people, to the world community, it could be the sea change that we're all looking for. Now, I have a couple of premises that I would like to present. First, the first premise is that the two-state solution will not work, the strict two-state solution. Let's imagine that we actually had that armistice line as the border. The Kotel, the Wailing Wall, would be in Palestine. All of the stalls that we love to go to in Israel and shop at would be in Palestine. We couldn't get to. Israel would no longer be collecting tax money for Palestine. The factories that Israel has set up in Palestine that employ so many Palestinians would be uprooted and moved over. It's also terribly unfair because people who live in Palestine, who have uncles in Jaffa or in Haifa, could not live there. People who live in Israel who would like to go back to Hebron could not go live in Hebron. These negotiations fall apart every time over the Palestinian right of return, and over the settlements, and over the border, and over settlement, and over security, and recently over declaring Israel the homeland of the Jews. And rightly so, because Israel and Palestine are one country, a homeland of two peoples, and they have an absolute right to live anywhere they want within this homeland. My second premise is that the one-state solution will not work. Whenever somebody stands up and says, oh, the two-state solution will not work, they usually propose the one-state solution. The one-state solution is one vote for one person. So we drop all the borders right now, everybody can live everywhere they want, and they can vote in the national government. This would begin with a majority of Jews voting in a Jewish government, and eventually it would turn into majority Palestinians voting in a Palestinian government. At that point, the Jews would leave, they'd take their businesses and go settle somewhere else. But it would always be a majority ruling over a minority. That's okay in many countries. That would not be okay in a country where the two sides have been killing each other for the last number of decades. So the one-state solution is naive and will not work. All right, another premise I begin with is that there is such a thing as Palestinians. They are real people. There is such a thing as Israelis, and such a thing as Israel. And after the vote in the General Assembly, there is now such a thing as Palestine. You can gain some debating points by saying there's no such thing as a Palestinian, but I know what they are. They're people who lived in Palestine before 1948, people who came and immigrated to Palestine and have been accepted into the Palestinian community and consider themselves Palestinians. Israelis are citizens of Israel. These are people who exist. This debate won't work. Another premise is that the people want peace. There are certainly leaders of both Palestine and Israel who benefit from having ongoing war, but your average Gaza resident wants to get up, go to work, feed his family, and not get bombed. Your average resident of Sderot in southern Israel wants to be able to get up, send his kids to school, not have missiles fly overhead, not have shrapnel come across the border. The people genuinely want peace. I'm not going to argue who started it. It matters who started it. It matters who's at fault, but it's not going to help to get us to peace. I'm also not going to argue who has a right to the land. Under international law, we all have a right to the land, the Jews and the Palestinians. Those are my premises. You disagree with them, you can disagree with them. We can debate those afterwards for hours. They're all very interesting. They won't get us peace. So what would I propose? Most importantly, put something public on the table to show Israel's good faith. Why should it be Israel? It should be Israel because I'm a Jewish guy and I can say Israel should do this. It's harder for me to say you guys over there do this. It would be great if Palestine put a proposal on the table, but I'm proposing that Israel do it, that Israel be a nation of priests. What should this be? What I would suggest is a loose federation. Now, what is a loose federation? I have not, as you can see in the drawing back there by my friend Garrett Gilchrist, put together one flag. It really is self-determination for both peoples. But what would happen is the Palestinians could live wherever they wanted in the homeland, but would vote in the national election in Palestine. The Israelis, the Jews, could live wherever they wanted in the homeland, but vote in the national election for Israel. That would take care of the settlement issue. It would take care of the right of return. It would take care of the declaring Israel a Jewish state. It would take care of the border. All of those problems go away. Jerusalem is a little stickier. But I have a plan for Jerusalem. A little complicated. I'll try to say it very quickly. Jerusalem would be rotating administrations. 4 years run by the Israelis, 4 years run by the Palestinians. How would you avoid that just having whoever had the majority? It would be weighted voting. Palestinians who vote get 50%. Israelis who vote get 50%. You cannot win without appealing to both sides. The best peacemakers would run the city of peace. You can't just let the borders down now. So we begin with normalization. Normalization, as you may know if you follow this, is a dirty word to the Palestinians. It means making friends with your oppressor. They view it as something that papers over an intolerable situation. But if it were the first step towards a final settlement, and we explain now what the final settlement is, normalization should work for everyone. It will mean teaching peace. It will mean joint summer camps. It will mean joint business ventures. It will mean joint orchestras. It will mean joint boy bands. There's actually a really good one already started up, a joint rock band between Palestinians and Israelis. I've forgotten the name now, but you can see it on my website. This would go on for 10 years. After the 10 years of normalization, there would be 5 years of quiet. After the 5 years of quiet, the immigration could start. I would suggest to you that you will not have Israel flooded with Palestinians at that point. People tend to like to live where they're living, but they also like to live, they like the right to be able to move. I'm a Jew from Brooklyn. If Connecticut suddenly passed a law that Jews from Brooklyn can't live there, I'd be very upset. I don't want to live in Connecticut. But I don't want a law passed that it would destroy the waspish culture of Connecticut to have Jews from Brooklyn live there. I would fight that in every way I could. I still don't want to live in Connecticut. I think most people would stay where they're living now. Now, during this period of normalization, you would see a crazy Marshall Plan for Palestine. You would have tax credits for countries around the world to build factories there, to start businesses there. Arab Disneyland, why not? If they want an Arab Disneyland, a great monorail that goes from Gaza across to Judea and Samaria with a view of all of the Holy Land. Palestinians are very warm and welcoming people. They're very well educated. Palestine is a beautiful place. Given the right circumstances, there is no reason why it cannot become a hub of business, a hub of industry, and a hub of tourism. Now next, and this is a very, very tough one, security. We cannot have two armies facing each other over the border who have just been fighting each other. We cannot have an Israeli army that is occupying Palestine indefinitely. That would result in people shooting at the Israeli army shooting back, and the UN sanctioning Israel. So what we would have to have is, during the period of normalization, a demilitarization of Gaza. Police forces on both sides. the Israeli military ensuring the peace, and after normalization has succeeded, after the Marshall Plan has succeeded, an integration of and a gradual integration of the military. I know this sounds very difficult, but what soldiers do is they follow orders. People said after the race riots in the 60s here in America, you really couldn't have integrated military. Oh, we have an integrated military. People said you couldn't have gay Americans integrated into the military. Well, we do. Soldiers follow orders. Now, who would the Palestinians be loyal to? They would be loyal to their new federation. They would not want Lebanon coming in and taking over. Lebanon, where they lived in squalid refugee camps where they got massacred. Jordan, where they got massacred in Black September. Iran, which has been using them as a proxy army. Egypt, which used them as a proxy army, then put up a wall and starved them. The Palestinians would be as loyal as anyone to their new federation. One other thing that I want to mention that I forgot to mention before, part of the Marshall Plan would be 600 new square miles in the Sinai that Egypt has offered. Shining, sparkling new cities rising out of the desert, using all of the technology that Israel can give them to make the desert bloom. You would have one central bank, one currency, but two governments. And Palestine could balance itself on the strong economy of Israel. I was not going to do this, but since I have 12 seconds left, I'd like to just read something from Kitavo, which was the Haftorah a couple of weeks ago, which is the great prophet Isaiah, his future for Israel. In me, the distant islands will place their hope. The ships of Tarshish will bring your children from afar, as in days of old. In my wrath I struck you, with my favor I will be compassionate to you. Your gates shall be ever open, day and night, and you shall never lock them, for the wealth of the nations shall come to you through your gates, along with the leaders of all nations with their escorts. Nations shall be guided by your light, and your light shall make the world's leaders wise. That does not mean lock our doors. It means welcome people in, including our brothers, the Palestinians. God bless Israel. God bless Palestine. Thank you.